I like lost media. A few years ago, I did a video about my favorite pieces of lost media. It was a fun video to make, just because the fact that something is still out there, waiting to be found by the next average Joe or organization. I mean, one minute you could be eating breakfast on YouTube, and the next minute, someone uploaded the complete pilot to Family Guy. But for how much lost media has been unearthed in the last few years, we also need to understand that there's still some media out there that has yet to be found. And while some media has become lost due to time, there's always the chance that something is going to be found for the rest of the world to see. So, how about we take a look at some of my favorite lost media? And to start, let's talk about anime. It's September 13th, 1985 in Japan. A small side-scroller titled Super Mario Bros. Releases on the family computer, or the Japanese Nintendo Entertainment System, and becomes a rousing success. About a year later, an anime film titled Super Mario Bros. The Great Mission to Rescue Princess Peach opens in theaters. It was the first ever movie based on a video game to be released, predating the American Super Mario Bros. Movie from 1993 by 7 years, which many consider to be the first movie based on a video game. Yes, the film that actor Bob Hoskins called the worst in his entire film career, that was not the first ever video game movie ever made. I wonder what he would have thought of the Japanese one. The plot itself loosely follows the game, with many creative liberties taken, such as Mario and Luigi running a general store instead of being plumbers, original characters that only appear in this movie and never appear again, and Luigi having a crippling gambling addiction. Now, technically you can watch this movie online, and there was even a 4K fan restoration done in 2022, but the movie currently has no official home media or streaming release. It was released on VHS and its competitor Betamax by VAP, but only for a single print run. When a copy does show up on Japanese auction sites, the prices can reach up to nearly $2,500. Merchandise isn't much better, with some, like this comic book version of the movie, going up to nearly $140. So, while technically not completely lost, it's extremely rare to find a hard copy of this movie, as well as any merchandise pertaining to the film. And considering that Illumination's Super Mario Bros. Movie has the backing of Nintendo themselves, it's likely that Nintendo would want fans to see this,
"Come on, Mario! Our big adventure begins now!"
rather than something like this. Now, what about anime films that are lost not due to single print runs, but due to the intentions of the director? Well, there was a mech film that holds that distinction, and that movie was Gothic Maid, Poetess of the Flowers. The film was based off of Mamoru Nagano's manga, The 5-Star Stories. In fact, Nagano himself was the director, writer, credited for the original work, and even one of the main animators. He was only one of 4 main animators credited, and all animation was done domestically rather than some animation work being outsourced to a foreign studio. Not only that, it was the first anime using 4K resolution and using the then new Dolby Atmos sound system. The film was released on November 1st, 2012, and reception to Gothic Maid was positive, with praise going towards the animation, but criticism went towards the characterization and unmemorable battles. However, despite having a positive reception, there hasn't been an official home or streaming release since. If you've heard of the movie JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Phantom Blood, based on the manga, that has never been released outside of its theatrical run, due partly to the critical panning of the movie and possibly the production studio losing the rights to the JoJo franchise following the usage of masks in the manga. But Gothic Maid has not been released on home media or streaming due to the author's own wishes. Nagano has stated that the only way to truly enjoy this movie was if you went to a theater that was able to support 4K resolution and Dolby Atmos, and as few homes have one or the other, it wouldn't be as enjoyable. However, the movie will show up in theaters from time to time thanks to Toho Cinema's Dream Pass service, which allows requests for movies to be re-released in any one of their theaters in Japan or at Akihabara's UDX Theater. Moving on to TV shows now, some of you may have heard about a blue cat named Doraemon. Hey, It's more anime.
But if that doesn't ring a bell, then the Doraemon series was originally created by Fujiko F. Fujio, which features the adventures of Nobita and his robotic blue cat Doraemon. The manga was released in 1969 and has since become a global phenomenon. The series has also spawned 3 anime series, with the second one running from 1979 to 2005, and the third series that has been running since 2005.
I say 3 because the first series began airing in 1973.
Produced by the studio Nippon Telemovie Productions, the series strayed far from the original source material. Audiences initially enjoyed it, including Fujiko themselves, but criticism was given towards the change in personalities of the characters. Not only that, nearly all 26 episodes were TV exclusive, meaning that few chapters from the manga were adapted to the small screen. The first series would continue to show in reruns, even when the second series was on air, with some stations broadcasting the show as late as 1981. However, Doraemon's publisher, Shogakukan, put an end to the first series so as not to confuse children with an inferior product. Consequently, Nippon Telemovie went bankrupt and tried to sell the original masters to cover their debts. Trying to find any sort of concrete episodes has become difficult to find. The most that have been found are the opening and endings, and another episode that was playing on a TV in the background of a 1970s Japanese porno. While the series has been played at Doraemon fan conventions, the series will not likely receive an official release due to the legal issues surrounding the series, as well as Shogakukan not wanting an inferior product to be sold alongside 2 other successful shows.
Okay, enough about anime. Let's move on to something different. Well, how many of you remember Harold and Kumar?
If you were around during the mid-2000s, you may have seen or have been aware of the Harold and Kumar film series. The trilogy of stoner comedy movies follows the adventures of 2 stoners, Harold Lee and Kumar Patel, played by John Cho and Kal Penn respectively. The first movie was Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, released in 2004 to critical and commercial success. 2 more movies followed, Harold and Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay in 2008, and A Very Harold and Kumar Christmas in 2011.
Shortly after the release of the third movie, there were rumors about an animated series being based off of the trilogy in development and being pitched to several networks. Well, these rumors would be true when in 2012, Cartoon Network's late-night block Adult Swim announced that they had ordered 7 pilots, with one of them being an animated project based on the Harold and Kumar series.
The show would have been produced by Lionsgate and animated by Bento Box Entertainment, at this point known for their work on Fox's Bob's Burgers. Around summer 2014, cast and crew for the series began posting pictures of various production materials, including Kal Penn posting a picture of the script, titled Harold and Kumar, the Animated Series. On July 9th, 2014, a table read was held for the pilot, and various members of the cast and crew were confirmed to be returning to the show, notably John Cho and Kal Penn, and popular voice actors Kerry Walgreen and Jess Harnell, known for their work in animation. In February 2015, Kal Penn posted a snippet of a recording session for the pilot on his Instagram.
Dude, why was her vagina so pixelated?
And while it was taken down, it has since been mirrored and available online. However, that was the last time any word was heard about the Harold and Kumar pilot, until some additional footage was shown on Bento Box's demo reel that was published in 2016. It's likely that Adult Swim canceled the pilot, and the project faded into obscurity, so much so that even only a handful of people in the lost media and Adult Swim communities know about it. Whatever the reason may be, fans of the Harold and Kumar series have been yearning for more of what could have been.
You know, that Superman movie just came out recently, didn't it? And speaking of Superman,
Jack Kirby was a comic book artist who, alongside with Stan Lee at Marvel Comics, created some of the most iconic superheroes of all time. The X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Ant-Man, and Thor to name a few. However, despite making all these characters, Jack Kirby felt that he wasn't being properly credited, and it felt that Stan Lee was getting most of, if not all, the credit. Alongside being dissatisfied with his contract, Jack packed up and left for DC Comics. While there, he had plans for his magnum opus, titled Fourth World, which would be a miniseries expanding several different comics, including the Superman comic, the spin-off Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, and the first issue of Forever People. Superman's appearance was notably tweaked, giving his face more realistic features and a completely different emblem. DC, however, wasn't a fan of this, and they employed veteran Superman artists Al Plastino and Murphy Anderson to draw over Jack's art to make sure that Superman didn't stray too far from his appearance. Jack wasn't too happy about this, though it seemed that trouble was already brewing for a while. He often had to draw stories that he didn't like, and artists and writers at DC felt like their jobs were threatened simply because old Jack was there. Jack left in 1975 and would return to Marvel, to which it was made public as part of Stan's. But let's go back to something a little nicer. How about the Blues Brothers?
If my estimations are correct, we should be very close to the Honorable Richard J. Daley Plaza.
Well, besides that, the Blues Brothers are a soul and blues band originally created by Saturday Night Live alumni Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi. They made their first musical guest appearance on Saturday Night Live on April 22, 1978. And the band kept growing from there, from live albums, opening for the Grateful Dead, and starring in their own movie in 1980. However, the momentum would be killed following Belushi's death from a drug overdose in 1983. The group reunited in 1988, and they would return again in 1998 for a sequel to their movie, The Blues Brothers 2000. But during that time, in between the original movie and the sequel, there were also plans for an animated series. I wonder how that would work. Well, in 1997, Aykroyd sold the rights to the United Paramount Network, or UPN, in which the network commissioned the studio film Roman, most known for making The Simpsons, to make a 13-episode series. Judging from the pilot script and a script from one of the episodes, it would have followed the duo solving people's problems around Chicago, where the movie itself takes place.
Now, how do you get Jake and Elwood, the characters that the actors portrayed, to be in the series, considering that John Belushi had already passed away? Well, you get the brothers of the comedians, Peter Aykroyd and James Belushi, to voice the characters. Not only that, but there was going to be a wealth of recognizable voice actors in the show, such as Mark Hamill, Tim Curry, BJ Ward, Ron Paulson, and even SNL alumni like Lorraine Newman and Don Novello. Now, I did read the pilot script, and it's fine. I just thought there was a little bit too much raunch in it, and I struggled to think what it was trying to go for. Was it supposed to be a family-friendly show, or maybe something a little bit more adult?
Either way, 8 episodes were produced, with an animatic promo featuring the Blues Brothers running over network mascots, followed by really lame jokes.
Jake, peacock, dead ahead. Not yet.
But these boys are smarter than any fox.
Episode 4 of the series, Piano Movin' Blues, also exists in animatic form.
So, what happened, you might be asking? Well, that's a good question. There was some change in management at UPN, especially when David Pritchard was appointed president and CEO of the network. In the fall of 1997, Pritchard canceled the series. It's unknown why it was canceled, but it's likely the new change in management may not have seen value in the series, and thus decided to cut their losses and cancel the series.
Despite this, scripts for the pilot episode and Mama's Day exist on the internet, as well as the aforementioned animatics, and even tons of various character and background concept art. It really looked like they were trying to emulate Chicago, and at the same time, it felt like they were doing something similar to The Simpsons. But until someone decides to upload all the episodes of the Blues Brothers cartoon, it looks like this is all that we'll see.
Now, let's go back to a canceled movie. This one specifically from Disney.
It's the late 90s, and Disney is at a bit of a crossroads. CG animation was becoming more and more popular, the Disney Renaissance was coming to an end, and more of Disney's movies weren't the commercial or critical successes they once were. It was then that Barry Cook, one of the directors of Disney's Mulan, decided to make a pitch about 3 children and a ghost who tried to help a couple get together, and it was set in the land of Appalachia.
Yeah, when Barry pitched this to ex-CEO Michael Eisner and the head of feature animation Thomas Schumacher, they felt it was better suited for a live-action movie. So, Barry went back to the drawing board and retooled his pitch to be about a story between the children of two feuding families, Rose and Elgin.
When Rose's father tries to cast a spell on Elgin to make him forget her so that she can be with the suitor her father picked for her, he accidentally casts it on Elgin's handcrafted dolls, who come to life. When Angel, who would have been voiced by Dolly Parton, refuses to help them get back together and leaves, it's up to the dolls to not only get Angel back, but also to keep Rose away from her suitor so she can be with Elgin. The film would have been titled My Peoples, based on a collective group of dolls that were made by a folk artist while Barry was on a research trip to Appalachia. The art style would have been that the dolls were computer animated, and everything else, from the backgrounds to the human characters, would be traditionally animated.
Barry wasn't a fan of CG animation, he called it too simple. So this would have been a very interesting way to weave both CG and traditional animation into one cohesive film.
As mentioned before, Dolly Parton was set to voice Angel, and other actors like Diedrich Bader and Lily Tomlin were also set to voice characters in the movie.
But what happens when a good concept for a movie gets going? Why, it gets canceled, of course!
In January of 2003, Thomas Schumacher would step down as the head of feature animation and will be replaced by David Staton, who was previously the head of Disney's TV animation arm. When Staton got around to looking at what Barry had come up with by February, Staton was unimpressed with what he saw. Barry reworked the film again to instead be that the dolls weren't brought to life by a magic spell, but rather they were the repossessed souls of Elgin's dead relatives. The title was also changed to A Few Good Ghosts. Though Barry wasn't a fan of the title, Eisner and Staton were impressed with the current progress of the movie, comparing it to Pixar movies at the time. Though, near the end of the month, Staton delivered the bad news that A Few Good Ghosts would be canceled in favor of Mark Dindal's then upcoming Chicken Little, which he felt had better appeal to the general public.
Sure. And to add more salt to the wound, he also announced that Disney's Florida studio, where My Peoples was being worked on, was shutting down for good.
So, how much work was done on this film? Well, quite a bit, but very little of it has ever been released to the public. But what has been released has been pretty interesting. There's concept art, some impressive animation tests, and even an animatic of the opening that showcased the only known song from the film, Tender Heart.
Two of the dolls from the movie, Cherokee and Good Old Boy, make background cameos in the movie Meet the Robinsons, which to me just sounds like a big old middle finger to the people that worked on the movie. It was kind of like, sorry, we don't really care about your movie, but we'll put your characters in another movie just because we can. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, enough of wholesome family kindness or whatever. I need something more edgy. Something like Family Guy.
Yes, I think Family Guy has been relevant again due to it being on the air for 25 years and also the full pilot finally being found. But I think it's become one of those shows that you either love or hate, like pineapple on pizza. Some people absolutely love it, and others
hate it to their core.
But regardless of your opinion on the show, or pizza for that matter, Family Guy has spawned tons of merchandise since its original broadcast on Fox. And of course, one of those being video games. We have Family Guy Video Game and Family Guy Back to the Multiverse. But the subject of this section is the latter game, released in November 2012 for the PS3, Xbox 360, and the PC.
The game itself is based off of the episodes Road to the Multiverse and The Big Bang Theory. In the game, Brian and Stewie find themselves in a battle with Stewie's evil twin brother Bertram, and they travel through multiple universes to stop him. It's a third-person shooter, and while reception was mixed upon release, I feel like there was something missing that could have made the game way better. Something undead or reanimated, coming from the grave. But what though? If zombies was your final answer, then you get the prize of a zombie's arm. In fact, the game's developer, Heavy Iron Studios, most well known at the time for making SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom, started developing the game in 2010 with the help of Fox Interactive. It was the height of the zombie shooter, with the likes of Left 4 Dead and Call of Duty's Zombies minigame, and Fox commissioned a game as such, with the title being Family Guy: Road to Death. The story goes that Death takes a vacation, to which a zombie apocalypse begins to wreak havoc throughout Quahog. So it's up to the Griffins, and a few others, to save the town and get Death's ass back to work. Now, the following was taken from a forum thread on Assembler Games, a forum site dedicated to rare video games and prototypes. On there, a former developer discussed his experience with making the game and dealing with Fox, and later Activision, who would go on to publish the game. The first iteration of the game combined multiple game modes, such as story/sandbox gameplay, multiplayer modes, and deathmatch modes, to name a few. However, this was rejected as it was too dark, so another pitch was made that was more in line with the third-person shooter aspect, while still retaining the zombies. During a presentation with Seth MacFarlane, creator of Family Guy and voice of many characters such as Peter, Stewie, and Brian Griffin, flipped out over the presentation with a resounding,
"Oh my good heavens, what is this?"
and would go on a tirade about blood and violence, though the developer felt this was hypocritical given Family Guy's own penchant for blood and violence. Regardless, a third iteration was made that toned down the violence even more, and this time they were able to get some of the writers from Family Guy on board, but that too was rejected, before it was finally retooled into the game we know of today. 2 trailers of the prototype are floating on the internet, and the majority of the concept art was posted by the late Sean Pin Ho, an artist who worked on the game, on his personal blog. Some people have found zombie sounds in the files for Back to the Multiverse, but it hasn't been confirmed if these zombie sounds were for Road to Death. It was also rumored that the Texas National Video Game Museum had a copy of the prototype, but the museum has denied this. Whatever the case, the developer has looked back fondly on this prototype, feeling that this was more hardcore in terms of gameplay and humor compared to the more homogenized game that was released.
And there you have it. More lost media that I like. That's what's interesting about lost media. What may be lost today may end up being found tomorrow. A dusty old VHS tape of a long-forgotten movie, or maybe a pilot that was on an artist's website that people were fighting tooth and nail to find. Whatever the case may be, entertainment isn't permanent, so it's important to make lost media found again. Otherwise, you could end up in the background of a 1970s Japanese porno.